I'm done. Those two words hung in the air, sharp as broken glass. My suitcase stood packed by the doorway, a declaration of surrender or perhaps victory. I wasn't sure which anymore. Beatrice's face had hardened into that mask of disapproval I'd grown so familiar with over these past 3 weeks, but for once, I didn't feel the sting. My name is Clara Mason. I'm 32, a nurse, and until 5 minutes ago, I was the devoted caregiver to my recovering mother-in-law. Now I was something else, a woman who had finally reached her breaking point. Emily would never abandon me like this, Beatrice said, her voice glacial with disappointment. Emily isn't here, I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. She's never here for more than an hour. I've been the one taking care of you. But if you think she can do better, then fine. I'm done. As I grabbed the handle of my suitcase, 3 weeks of sleepless nights, canceled plans, and endless criticism suddenly lifted from my shoulders. I hope she can give you what you need, I said quietly, because I won't be back. Good, she said with disdain. I won't miss the complaining. At least Emily knows how to show respect. Without another word, I turned and walked out, my chest tight but my head held high. How had it come to this? How had I gone from hoping to finally build a bridge with my mother-in-law to walking out her front door, vowing never to return? Flashback, the beginning. When Beatrice's hip surgery was scheduled last month, I was the first to offer help. Ben, my husband of 5 years, wanted to be there too, but his architectural firm was in the middle of their biggest project to date. I can't get away right now, Clara, he'd explain, his face creased with guilt. Mom needs someone, and you're the best at this care stuff. Behind his words, I heard the unspoken truth. Ben had always been caught between his mother's expectations and his own life. Growing up as the only son of a demanding English teacher had shaped him into the peacekeeper he was, always finding the path of least resistance. His father had been gentle but distant, leaving Beatrice to be the driving force in their family. When Mr. Mason passed away 10 years ago, it had somehow intensified Beatrice's grip on her children, especially Ben. I'll do it, I told him, squeezing his hand. Maybe this will finally give your mom and me a chance to connect. Ben had kissed my forehead, relief washing over his features. You're amazing, you know that? Mom can be challenging, but she'll appreciate this. I know she will. I should have recognized the uncertainty in his voice. At Beatrice's house day one, my first day at Beatrice's had been deceptively promising. She'd been groggy from pain medication, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. As I helped her settle into her bed, she'd looked up at me with something almost like gratitude. Thank you, Clara, she'd murmured before drifting off to sleep. That night, I'd called Ben with hopeful excitement. I think this might work, I'd whispered. She seems softer somehow. But as the medication wore off over the next few days, so did any warmth between us. The Beatrice I knew, critical, demanding, perpetually disappointed, returned with full force. Looking back, I wonder if I'd been naive to think a surgery would change years of entrenched behavior. Beatrice had been a high school English teacher for 30 years, known for her strict standards and uncompromising assessments. She'd brought that same exacting eye to her home life, to her children, and now to me. The kitchen present day, earlier, careless, Beatrice had called me this morning. The word had sliced through me as I stood stirring soup at her stove, my hands cramping from the night before when I'd been up every 2 hours to help her reposition. The wooden spoon had trembled in my grip as I fought back words I knew I'd regret. 3 weeks of giving everything I had, and all she could see was that I hadn't added enough salt to the soup. My throat felt dry, and the words I wanted to say caught like thorns in my chest. Beatrice turned back to the table, muttering something under her breath, her disapproval settling over the room like a heavy fog. Emily, of course, was nowhere to be found. She was already running late for her weekly appearance, and yet Beatrice spoke of her as if she were the one standing here, ladle in hand, taking care of her every need. My parents had raised me to respect my elders, to put others first. Dad had worked double shifts at the factory for 20 years to put me through nursing school, and Mom had never complained about the sacrifices they made. That's what family does, she'd always said. Perhaps that's why I tried so hard with Beatrice. I wanted to honor what my parents had taught me about care and respect. But this was something else entirely. I had given up everything for the past 3 weeks, canceled plans, traded shifts, even missed my anniversary dinner with Ben, all to be here. And for what? To be labeled careless because I hadn't added enough salt to the soup? Meanwhile, Emily could float in for an hour, snap a selfie by Beatrice's bedside, and walk out with all the credit. Emily's visit, the catalyst. Just as I opened my mouth to defend myself, the front door creaked open, and Emily strolled in, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. "Smells good in here," she chirped, holding a bouquet of flowers in one hand and her phone in the other. She never arrived during the difficult moments, the bath times, the medication struggles, the late night discomfort. She appeared when Beatrice was at her most presentable, when the house was tidy, when dinner was nearly ready. "How's my favorite patient today?" she cooed, leaning down to kiss her mother on the cheek. Beatrice's face lit up, her earlier frustration with me vanishing like a puff of smoke. "Emily, sweetheart, you're just in time." I was telling Clara how important it is to pay attention to the little things. Not that she'd understand, she added with a pointed glance in my direction. Emily set the flowers on the counter and let out a soft laugh. "Oh, Mom, I'm sure Clara's doing her best," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "Don't worry, Clara. Taking care of Mom isn't easy. I've been learning that myself." Learning that herself? Emily had visited for exactly 45 minutes last week and spent most of that time taking photos for her Instagram. I'd seen the posts, precious moments with Mom #family care #devotion, accompanied by carefully angled shots that didn't show the medication organizers I'd set up, or the schedule I'd created, or any evidence of the actual care I provided. Emily had mastered the art of pleasing Beatrice. A quick visit, a few photos for social media, and she was the perfect daughter. While Ben had developed empathy, Emily had perfected performance. Their father's death had affected them differently. Ben sought connection, while Emily seemed to seek only approval. I clenched my jaw as Emily pulled her phone out for what I knew was coming next. She posed next to Beatrice, leaning in with a radiant smile as her camera clicked. "Just want to capture these precious moments," she said, her voice light, as if she hadn't just stolen the spotlight from everything I'd been working tirelessly to hold together. As Emily scrolled through her phone, probably selecting the best filter to enhance her devoted daughter persona, Beatrice sighed contentedly. "It's so nice to have both my girls here," she said, her gaze lingering on Emily. "Though I'll admit, Emily always knows just how to make me feel special." My grip tightened on the ladle, the weight of her words pressing down on me. Both her girls. I had spent the last 3 nights waking up every 2 hours to help Beatrice shift positions, prepare her medication, and ensure she was comfortable. Meanwhile, Emily's contribution amounted to curated snapshots and vague reassurances that she was always thinking of Mom. "Mom," Emily began, her tone casually breezy, "I was actually thinking of bringing you that herbal tea you love next week, you know, the one from that little shop downtown. It's just been so busy at work, but I'll make time." "Oh, Emily, that sounds wonderful," Beatrice exclaimed, her eyes practically glowing with pride. "You're always so thoughtful." I couldn't stop myself this time. "Thoughtful?" I blurted, my voice sharper than I intended. "She drops by once a week to take a few photos and then disappears. I've been here every single day, doing everything I can to make sure you're comfortable." Emily's smile didn't falter. If anything, it grew wider, but her eyes flashed with something colder. "Clara," she said, her voice calm and measured, "I didn't realize this was a competition. We're all doing our part in our own way. Some more than others," I muttered under my breath, turning back to the stove. The moment the words left my mouth, regret washed over me. Even though I was right, I hated that I let my frustration spill over, that I'd stooped to making it sound like I was keeping score. It wasn't who I wanted to be, no matter how unfair things felt. In the guest room, the phone call. Later that evening, I slipped into the guest room, shutting the door quietly behind me. I sank onto the edge of the bed, my phone already in my hand. Ben picked up on the second ring, his voice warm but distracted. "Hey, everything okay?" "No," I said, the word tumbling out before I could stop it. "I'm exhausted, Ben. I've been doing everything for your mom, everything, and she doesn't even notice." Emily walks in for 10 minutes with flowers and a fake smile, and suddenly she's the perfect daughter. Ben sighed heavily on the other end. Clara, you know how my mom is. She's always been like this. You can't take it personally. I know she's like this, I snapped, my voice sharper than I meant. But that doesn't make it easier. Do you have any idea what it feels like to be here day in and day out and still be invisible? I just, I stopped, swallowing the lump in my throat. I just needed you to understand. Ben's voice softened, a hint of concern cutting through his usual practicality. Clara, maybe it's time to take a break. You've done more than enough. You've done everything, honestly. Why don't you come home for a week? Let Emily step up for once. I miss you, and you need to take care of yourself too. His words caught me off guard, the knot in my chest loosening slightly. The thought of going home, of sleeping in my own bed and being with Ben, was so tempting it almost hurt. But then I thought of Beatrice, her frailty, her stubbornness, and the nagging guilt in my stomach returned. I don't know, I said quietly. What if she needs me? She'll manage, Ben said firmly. You've been more than generous, Clara. It's okay to step back. You're not a bad person for putting yourself first for once. Ben and I lived 2 hours away in a small apartment we'd made our home over the last 5 years. When Beatrice's surgery was scheduled, I'd offered to move in temporarily to help with her recovery. Ben had wanted to be there too, but his job was at a critical point with deadlines he couldn't ignore. He'd called every day to check in, always asking how I was holding up, but I knew it weighed on him that he couldn't be here to share the burden. As much as I missed him, I couldn't blame him. He was doing the best he could, just like I was. I'll think about it, I said quietly, my throat tightening. I promise. It felt like the right thing to say, even though I wasn't sure if I could really let myself walk away. After we hung up, I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. The guest room was small but neat, with floral wallpaper that had probably been fashionable 20 years ago. There was nothing personal about it, nothing that reflected me or made me feel welcome. Just like my role in this house, functional but ultimately interchangeable in Beatrice's eyes. The breaking point, next morning. The next morning, I found Beatrice in the living room, sitting upright in her chair with the television on low. She didn't look up as I entered, her attention fixed on a weather report. I hesitated, wondering if I should start the conversation with a simple good morning. But before I could speak, she turned to me with a pointed look. Clara, she said, her tone already laced with irritation. I couldn't help but notice how late dinner was last night. It's not good for my digestion to eat that late, you know. I blinked, taken aback. Dinner was ready as soon as Emily left. I thought we agreed. Yes, because you didn't have it prepared earlier, she interrupted, her words sharp. When Emily is here, everything feels more put together. She doesn't need to be told what to do. I clenched my hands at my sides, fighting back the words I wanted to say. Emily stayed for less than an hour, I replied carefully. She didn't even stay for dinner. That's not the point, Beatrice snapped, leaning forward slightly. Emily knows how to handle herself. She doesn't wait for me to tell her when or how to do things. She's considered. I felt a familiar tightness in my chest, the same constriction that appeared whenever Beatrice began one of her comparisons. It reminded me of my first dinner at her house 6 years ago when she'd spent the entire meal talking about Emily's accomplishments while barely acknowledging my presence. Ben had squeezed my hand under the table then, a silent apology. I let out a slow breath, trying to keep my composure. I've been here every day, Beatrice. I've been doing everything I can to make sure you're comfortable. And yet somehow it always feels like a struggle. She shot back, her voice growing colder. You're here physically, Clara, but emotionally you're checked out. You don't seem like you actually want to be here. Her words struck like a blow, my chest tightening further. That's not fair, I said, my voice trembling despite my efforts to stay calm. I've put my life on hold to be here for you. I've been sacrificing. She cut in, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Oh, how noble of you. If it's such a burden, Clara, maybe you should have just let Emily handle it. She's busy, yes, but at least she doesn't make me feel like I'm an inconvenience. I opened my mouth, then closed it, unsure of how to respond. The hurt and anger bubbled inside me. but I knew saying anything more would only make it worse. Instead, I straightened my voice, quiet but firm. I'm doing my best, Beatrice. I'm sorry if that's not enough. She waved a hand dismissively, turning back to the television. Your best isn't what I need, Clara. Emily understands me in ways you never will. The room felt suffocating, her words hanging in the air like smoke. Without another word, I turned and left, retreating to the guest room to collect myself. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not yet, not in front of her. The decision. Guest room, sitting on the edge of the guest bed, I stared at the neatly folded clothes in my suitcase, my thoughts swirling. Beatrice's words replayed in my mind, each one digging deeper into the ache that had been building for weeks. No matter how much I gave, how much I tried, it was never enough, and it never would be. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my messages, landing on the last one from Ben. You've done enough, Clara. Please come home. The words felt heavier now, but they also carried a clarity I hadn't wanted to admit before. Ben was right. I had done enough. I'd given up my time, my energy, and my peace of mind to be here, hoping it might make a difference. But nothing I did would ever compare to the pedestal Beatrice had placed Emily on. I couldn't keep sacrificing myself for someone who didn't see me, who didn't value what I was giving. I remembered something my nursing supervisor had told me during my first year. You can't pour from an empty cup, Clara. Sometimes the most caring thing you can do is recognize when you need care yourself. I let out a shaky breath, wiping the tears that threatened to spill. It wasn't about giving up. It was about knowing when I'd reached my limit. For my own sanity, I had to stop waiting for Beatrice's approval. I had to go home. I began to pack methodically, folding each item with care. I'd talk to Beatrice one more time, I decided. One last attempt to make her understand. The confrontation returned to opening scene. The air between us was thick, heavy with everything that had been left unsaid. My heart pounded as I stepped forward, determined to finally speak my mind. Beatrice, I began, my voice steady but soft. I need to talk to you. She glanced up briefly, her expression unreadable. If this is about dinner tonight, I'd rather you focus on getting it right than wasting time chatting. My jaw tightened, but I pushed through. No, it's not about dinner. It's about how I've been treated since I got here. Her hand froze mid-stir, and she finally looked at me, one eyebrow arched. Oh? And how exactly have you been treated, Clara? I took a deep breath, the words spilling out before I could second-guess myself. I've been here every day, doing everything I can to take care of you. I've rearranged my life, missed important moments, and given you all of my energy. And yet, no matter what I do, it's never enough. You've made it clear time and time again that you don't value me, and honestly, I'm tired of being treated like I'm worthless. She set her spoon down with a deliberate clink, folding her hands in front of her. Well, she said coolly, if you're tired, Clara, no one's forcing you to stay. Frankly, Emily would do a much better job anyway. She always has. Her words stung sharper than I'd expected, but I refused to let her see how much they hurt. This was the pattern we'd established over years. Beatrice would wound, I would absorb, and nothing would change. But not this time. Emily isn't here, Beatrice, I said, my voice firmer now. She's never here for more than an hour or two. I've been the one taking care of you, but if you think she can do better, then fine. I'm done. Beatrice didn't flinch, her expression hard as stone. Good, she said with disdain. I won't miss the complaining. At least Emily knows how to show respect. I nodded slowly, the finality of her words settling over me like a cold weight. I hope she can give you what you need, I said quietly, because I won't be back. Without waiting for her response, I turned and walked away, my chest tight but my head held high. It was over. I was done. The exit, packing up, back in the guest room, I packed my things with quiet determination. Each folded piece of clothing felt like another weight lifted off my shoulders. Beatrice's cutting words still rang in my ears, but I shoved them aside. It was over. I was done bending myself into knots for someone who didn't value me. Once everything was packed, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone. My thumb hovered over Emily's number before I pressed call. The line rang several times before she finally picked up. What is it, Clara? Emily answered, her tone clipped and impatient. I'm kind of busy right now. I took a deep breath, refusing to let her attitude get to me. I'm leaving, I said simply. I've packed my things, and I'm heading home. Beatrice needs someone here, so congratulations, you're up. What? She snapped, her voice immediately rising. Wait, what are you talking about? You can't just leave. I can, and I am, I said firmly. I've done my part, Emily. It's your turn now. She let out a high-pitched laugh, the kind that came more from disbelief than amusement. Oh, sure. Just drop everything on me. Why don't you? Do you have any idea how busy I am? I can't just. I've been here for weeks, I cut in, my voice steady. You've had time to prepare for this. Mom's your responsibility too, and she seems to think you're better at this anyway. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Are you kidding me? Emily shrieked, her tone growing more frantic. I don't have time to babysit her. That's your thing, Clara. You're the caretaker, not me. There it was. The truth behind the carefully constructed Instagram posts and brief, camera-ready visits. Emily had never intended to actually care for her mother. She just wanted the credit for it. Not anymore, I said, my voice cold. Good luck, Emily. Before she could respond, I hung up, exhaling a shaky breath. I stood, grabbed my suitcase, and headed for the door. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. It was time to leave. The phone call. 4 days later. 4 days had passed since I left, and I had tried my best not to think about what might be happening back at Beatrice's house. But when my phone buzzed late that evening, I saw her name flashing on the screen. A part of me wanted to ignore it, but curiosity and maybe a bit of guilt got the better of me. I picked up. Hello? I said cautiously. Clara. Beatrice's voice came through, shaky and strained. She sounded different, tired, maybe even desperate. I need to talk to you. I hesitated, unsure of what to say. Is everything okay? No, she admitted, the word heavy with frustration and something else I couldn't quite place. Emily hasn't been here since you left. She's barely answering my calls, and when she does, she has some excuse about work or being too busy. She promised me she'd be here. I bit my lip, resisting the urge to say, I told you so. Instead, I stayed quiet, letting her vent. I've had to do everything on my own, Beatrice continued, her voice trembling. I can't even manage the stairs some days. I don't know what to do, Clara. I feel completely abandoned. Her words hit harder than I expected, stirring a mixture of emotions. Sympathy, vindication, and a lingering ache of resentment. She had treated me like I was nothing, and now she was realizing what it meant to truly feel alone. I'm sorry to hear that, Beatrice, I said finally, my tone neutral. But I warned you this might happen. Emily's good at saying the right things, but she's never been the one to follow through. There was a long pause, and for the first time, Beatrice's voice softened. I didn't think she'd. I didn't think she'd just leave me like this. I thought she cared. I stayed silent, not wanting to twist the knife. Beatrice was finally feeling the consequences of her favoritism, and while a small part of me felt justified, another part of me couldn't help but feel sorry for her. I took a deep breath, clutching the phone tightly. Beatrice, I'm sorry you're feeling this way. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. I began, my voice quiet but steady. But I can't just come back, not right now. What do you mean, not right now? She snapped, her tone immediately sharp. I mean, I can't drop everything again to move back in, I said firmly, though my heart ached as I spoke. Beatrice, you treated me like I was nothing when I was there. I gave everything I could, and you made me feel like I didn't matter. I can't put myself through that again. Her response was immediate and furious. Oh, so now you're going to hold a grudge, are you? She yelled, her voice rising. You think you're so perfect, Clara? You think I didn't notice the mistakes you made while you were here? Don't act like you're some martyr. You've never been good enough for this family, and now you're proving it. Her words hit like a slap, but I kept my voice calm. Beatrice, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I know I made mistakes, but I tried. I gave everything I had, and you never saw that. And now, after everything, you expect me to come back as if none of that happened? She let out a bitter laugh, her tone dripping with anger. I should have known. You're just like everyone else, selfish. At least Emily would never abandon me like this. Emily already has, I said quietly, the words hanging in the air. There was a stunned silence on the other end before she exploded again. Don't you dare talk about Emily like that. She has her reasons, unlike you, who's just looking for an excuse to quit. Tears welled in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I'm sorry you feel that way, Beatrice, but I can't come back, not like this. Before she could yell more, I ended the call, my hands trembling. The weight of her words sat heavy on my chest, but I knew I couldn't go back. Not now, and maybe not ever. The healing. 5 days passed, and I tried to move on, pushing the memories of Beatrice's anger to the back of my mind. I was starting to feel a sense of peace again, though it was fragile, held together by long walks and conversations with Ben. We talked about what had happened, about the patterns of behavior I'd endured, and about setting healthier boundaries. You did the right thing, Ben had reassured me. Mom needs to understand that she can't treat people that way and expect them to stay. I'd been surprised by his clarity. For years, Ben had been the mediator, the one who smoothed things over when Beatrice's sharp edges cut too deep. Now, he seemed to be seeing his mother's behavior through new eyes, my eyes, perhaps. Then, late in the evening, my phone buzzed. It was her. I stared at the screen for a moment, debating whether to answer. With a deep breath, I picked up. Hello? Clara? Beatrice's voice broke on the other end, shaky and filled with tears. Clara, I'm so sorry. I sat down, stunned. In the 6 years I'd known Beatrice, I'd never once heard her apologize for anything. Her sobs were raw, her words tumbling out in fragments. I I don't know what to say. I've been sitting here thinking about everything, and I can't believe how awful I was to you. You didn't deserve any of it. I I don't even know why I acted like that. You gave so much, and I threw it back in your face. I remained silent, trying to process this sudden transformation. Was it genuine? Or just another manipulation? My guard was up, but something in the vulnerability of her voice gave me pause. I regret it so much, she choked out. Emily hasn't been here in days, and now I see it. I see what you were saying all along. I just, I need you to know how sorry I am. I didn't deserve your kindness, but you gave it anyway. Tears pricked at my eyes, her sincerity cutting through the pain I'd been carrying. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Thank you, Beatrice, I said softly. That means more than you know. I don't expect you to forgive me, she whispered, her voice cracking, but I had to tell you. I'm so sorry. I sat in silence for a moment, letting her words sink in. I'll need time, I said finally, my voice gentle but firm. But I appreciate your apology. It's a start. It is, she said, her sobs quieting. I'll try to do better, Clara. I promise. When the call ended, I set the phone down, my heart heavy, but lighter all at once. For the first time, it felt like there was a path forward, however slow it might be. Flashback, my wedding day. I remembered my wedding day, 5 years ago. Beatrice had cornered me in the small room where I was getting ready. I hope you know what you're doing, she'd said, straightening my necklace with cool efficiency. Marriage isn't just romance and pretty dresses. It's work. I'd nodded, determined not to let her dampen my spirits. I know that, Beatrice. Ben needs someone who understands his ambitions, she continued. Emily's college roommate, the one who's an architect too. She always said Ben had remarkable potential. Even on my wedding day, there it was, the comparison, the implication that someone else would have been better suited. I'd smiled tightly and turned back to the mirror, refusing to engage. Later, during the reception, I'd spotted Beatrice sitting alone, watching the dancing with a glass of champagne in hand. For just a moment, her composed facade had slipped, revealing something I hadn't expected: loneliness. I'd wondered then if her sharp edges were less about cutting others and more about protecting herself. Now, years later, I wondered if her apology meant she was finally ready to lower those defenses. The reconciliation. Weeks later. The weeks that followed were a slow, careful dance of reconciliation. I didn't return to stay at Beatrice's house, but I began to visit, first for an hour, then for an afternoon. Ben came with me sometimes, marveling at the changed atmosphere between his mother and me. Beatrice had hired a part-time caregiver, a no-nonsense woman named Margaret who seemed unperturbed by Beatrice's occasional sharp comments. "Water off a duck's back," she told me with a wink. "I've been doing this job for 30 years, honey. I've heard it all." On my third visit, Beatrice had asked me to help her sort through old photographs, a task she'd never trusted me with before. As we sat at her dining table, carefully organizing faded images into albums, she'd hesitated over a picture of a young man in a graduation cap and gown. "My husband," she'd said softly. "Ben looks so much like him sometimes it hurts." I'd nodded, unsure what to say. Beatrice rarely spoke of her late husband. He was the calm one, she continued, her fingers tracing the outline of his face. I was always reactive, too quick to judge, too slow to praise. He balanced me. She looked up then, her eyes meeting mine. After he died, I think I got worse. Harder. Emily learned to manage me. She knows exactly what to say, exactly how to perform to get my approval. Ben tried to fix things, to keep the peace. And you. I just wanted to be accepted, I admitted. To be part of the family. "Your family," she'd said quietly. "I was just too stubborn to let you in." Those simple words had begun to heal a wound I'd carried for years. Epilogue. The new normal. After Beatrice recovered, everything was different. She treated me with kindness and gratitude, her sharp edges replaced by genuine warmth. Each visit was lighter, filled with moments of connection instead of tension. One afternoon, as we sat on her porch enjoying the spring sunshine, she mentioned Emily's latest social media post, a carefully curated image of mother and daughter enjoying tea. "It looks nice," she commented, sipping from her actual teacup. "But it's not real, is it?" "Not like this." I glanced at her, surprised by the insight. "No, it's not like this. I used to think appearances were everything," she admitted. "The perfect family, the perfect mother, the perfect daughter-in-law. I wanted Emily to be successful because it reflected well on me. I wanted Ben to marry someone impressive for the same reason." She shook her head. "How shallow that seems now. What changed your mind?" I asked Beatrice. She considered the question, watching a pair of birds dart between the trees. "Being truly alone," she said finally. "When you left and Emily didn't come, I realized I'd been valuing the wrong things. Appearances fade. Photos get deleted. But kindness." She looked at me then, her eyes clear and direct. "Kindness stays." Beatrice went out of her way to show her appreciation now, in small ways that meant more than grand gestures. She remembered my favorite tea, asked about my work, listened when I spoke. And while the past couldn't be erased, it no longer weighed us down. For the first time, I felt truly valued, and that made all the difference. Not because I needed Beatrice's approval anymore, but because we'd both learned something essential about what family really means. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present. It's not about the photos you take. It's about the moments you make. And sometimes, the hardest person to care for is yourself. But it's the most important care of all.